Hey, this is Tyrese Anderson. What I want to talk about today is who was a better civil rights leader, Martin Luther King or Malcolm X. Now, before I get started with explaining who I believe was better, the truth of the matter is that I just want to get out here is that the past is the past. You know, we there's no need for people to hold grudges against white people, particularly if you're black, for what was done in the past. This is not an anti-white video being put out there. This is simply me speaking the truth. Not even a case of my opinion, simply the truth, objective truth, not in a subjective way. It's the truth. Okay? So you don't have to take this personally, what I'm going to say, because the truth of the matter is this happened. These things that happened in the past and would not even happen today. Besides, half of the celebrities you see on the news and all that sort of stuff are black anyway. We're a lot more powerful in general, not just in terms of star power, but even on the ground level than we were back then. Okay, so none of the things that happened back then would happen. So this is just more speculation. It's just like kind of like talking about who was a better person during the samurai era, if anything. Okay, so don't take any of this stuff personally, because this stuff has been resolved. It's a past. I'm just going to speak the honest truth here, okay? So when it comes to answering this question of who I think was better, Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, my simple answer to that question for this debate that's been going on for quite a long time, who is a better leader, is simply put it Malcolm X. Now, the reason why I personally believe Malcolm X was a better leader, the first reason why I believe he was a better leader was simply due to the fact that Malcolm X is an example of what people don't want to hear versus what people want to hear. Okay? Martin Luther King is a perfect example, absolutely perfect example, in all honesty, of people hearing what they want to hear. While Malcolm X is a perfect example of people not hearing what they want to hear, okay? And this is referring to white America at the time. Things have changed, so we don't have to really worry about this. This is something you can even chill and relax in the background with a nice beautiful background and you like the sun shining. These things have been resolved. This is not an everyday part of life anymore, okay? So just chill if you're taking any of this stuff personally. So anyway, back to the point I was making about um about the two when it comes to speaking the truth. Malcolm X definitely at the time spoke the truth, okay? He spoke the truth about the brutality African Americans were experiencing at the time. The extreme racism and brutality they were experiencing. Um while Martin Luther King was kind of more just kind of like the let's water it down to make it more accessible to a wider audience. So that's why I definitely prefer Malcolm X, because he spoke the honest truth here. Because the truth of the matter is, when it comes to speaking to situations or whenever situations like that arise in life, like the race issue and stuff, um, the truth is when you deal with situations like that, what makes a person the person that they are is their ability to speak the truth, okay? To speak the truth of the matter, okay? And Malcolm X spoke the truth, which takes a lot of bravery to speak the honest truth here. So, yeah, it's to speak the honest truth here. And that's kind of what I'm trying to say here, you know, because the truth is that Malcolm X, when he spoke all the things that he was speaking about, he was was speaking in a way to kind of prepare people for a situation. Now, anyone who knows anything about history knows that whenever you're going through a situation or going through bad times and all that type of stuff, you have to know how to prepare yourself or your group for a really bad situation. Now, even though we live in the 21st century, so we're extremely spoiled um, when it comes to privileges and all that type of stuff. In so many ways, we wouldn't even simply notice it. We wouldn't even notice it. That's why we feel so numb for everything. Actually, in all actuality, because we have so much and it's so easy to get access to everything. The truth of the matter is, in the past, it wasn't like that. And sometimes there were groups of people who are terrible, who are evil, okay? If you want to use that term. And they're evil in the context that they were brainwashed to view your group as a less than them. And they were taught at a young age to view your group as less than them. Now, this could be, now, this is a very, now, this has been present in many different tribes throughout the world's history, whether it could be the Amazon or, Africa, um, maybe Europe at certain parts of times in their history, much earlier on in their history, to different to parts of Asia and Oceania, like places like Papua New Guinea and all that stuff. That way of thinking, that tribalistic way of thinking, is something that was present, that's been present throughout tribes of all different groups of people. And when you have a situation like that going on, it makes sense for you to prepare yourself for them. Because if they're gonna be doing all this bad stuff to you, what happens when something happens? What am I gonna do? Well, I don't know. I'm gonna talk about peace and love and all that type of stuff. Like, what's that going to do if they decide to do something to you? Not to mention the other problem with that way of thinking, and with Martin Luther King's way of thinking, is that it's a bit overly idealistic. The world does not work that way. Okay, you can't live in a world where everyone gets along all the time. If Because the truth of the matter is, people are people, and some people in general just like to cause problems anyway in the first place. Not to mention, people are different. So you can't just expect to live in a world where everybody just gets along all the time, because that's just going to cause problems. So that's my issue with that way of thinking. Not to mention, I'm not really the biggest fan of people who have that way of thinking of, well, if you attack that person, it makes you just as bad as them, because all they really do is they just make you feel guilty for seeking justice, or simply even being willing to defend yourself when someone's treating you badly. This is what I'm trying to say here. So Malcolm X, from a survival perspective, was definitely a much better person. Maybe some of the things he said at the time might come off as corny today, but when you look at how terrible the treatment was, and of course how old this was, you know, it's definitely forgivable, to put it bluntly. So that's my first point as to why I believe Malcolm X is better than Martin Luther King. They're both good leaders anyway, by the way, though. The second reason why I believe Malcolm X was better than Martin Luther King was simply due to the fact that X, Malcolm X also gave advice. Martin Luther King didn't give advice when it came to actually helping the black community, like economic advice. Malcolm X gave advice that was actually helpful, and he helped you see the world for what it really was, instead of just trying to say, let us find the good in everyone, like sort of way of thinking. He made good points talking about how white liberals were just as racist, as white conservatives, which I think they kind of are, especially by the standards of the time. It's just that the thing is that the white liberals were the ones who just were just the more wild ones who just wanted to do whatever the heck they wanted to do, while the white conservatives were not interested in that stuff. And even then, look at all the stuff these conservatives are getting caught up in all the time doing. So he made good points there, and he made good economic points that could actually be helpful to people. Like, we need to start running our own businesses, we need to start doing this, we need to start doing that in order to help our community. While Martin Luther King just simply spoke about love and hoping that we all see the world a certain particular way. So I definitely believe Malcolm X was definitely better when it came to giving advice. So, in short, Malcolm X definitely was better because he spoke the truth. He's an example of saying what the truth is versus simply people hearing what they want to hear. Okay? So that's definitely the truth of the matter, to put it bluntly. So this is my video. Um by me. If you liked it, remember to hit the thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button. This is all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed it as well as this history lesson. And that's it. Later.